This is what happens when female psychopaths start scamming. Let's get right into it. Number 4. City girls behind city bars. Before City Girls, singer JT was known as Jatavia Johnson, a Miami girl who came from nothing. Hailing from a bad neighborhood, JT was among the youngest of 16 brothers and sisters. After she reached 7th grade, JT was put out on her own, sometimes staying with an aunt and other times crashing at friends' houses. JT had various day jobs from Whole Foods to Burger King, always working, but still struggling to make ends meet. Getting fed up with the life she had, JT used a handful of stolen credit card numbers to buy clothes and various gift cards she felt she deserved. JT showed off this time of her life in photos she posted on her social media. Gifts for her niece, a digital camera for a vacation, makeup artists for night outs with the girls. She was eventually arrested in June of 2017 at a Nordstrom after buying a pair of shoes. Shortly after her arrest, JT and the other half of City Girls, Young Miami, were discovered by hip-hop label Quality Control. And by Christmas, City Girls had released their first official single, a song we're not going to repeat. We're pretty sure this song isn't going to challenge Mariah Carey for most played song at Christmas anytime soon. Also released around the same time was Where the Bag At, a song about demanding money where JT repeats deeply poetic lines describing that she needs someone, quote, who gonna swipe them visas? This likely didn't help her case. JT pled guilty to aggravated identity theft and was sentenced to 24 months in federal prison. Her lawyer provided a schedule of upcoming City Girl shows leading up to a major appearance at the BET Awards in June of that year, so the judge agreed to push back JT's surrender date. Then, a week before she was set to go in, JT's lawyer requested another delay on account of a recent co-sign with Canada's favorite son, Drake, leaning into the fact that JT was a rising superstar in the hip-hop industry. The requested extension wasn't fully granted, but JT was permitted to perform at the award show and finish her verse for Drake. After completing her commitments, JT honored her sentence and showed up to serve her time. JT began her prison term in July 2018 and was set to be released on March 1, 2020. In the meantime, City Girls continued to release singles and tracks with the other half of the group, Young Miami, doing everything she could to promote their music. In an attempt to get an early release, JT argued her good behavior for over a year should qualify her, leaving about 8.5 months of her sentence remaining. While the request was denied, JT was transferred to a halfway house 5 months before her scheduled release, allowing her to continue her career. Since her incarceration and release, JT has amassed a net worth of $1.5 million. That net worth mostly comes from the group's high appearance fees. They charge $40,000 for TV appearances and $15,000 for nightclub appearances. Looks like she found a new way to rip people off. Number 3. Her mantra was to steal. Amanda Knorr, 35, was one of 3 people charged over a green energy scheme that defrauded over 300 investors. Knorr and her college boyfriend, Troy Wragg, founded Mantria Corp. Knorr's company, Mantria, focused on green community development, socially responsible investing, distressed real estate fund management, mortgage banking, renewable energy, music and entertainment, and philanthropy. So pretty much everything. The couple received more than $54 million from hundreds of investors within 4 years based on promises of technology that would turn trash into fuel and carbon-negative housing developments, neither of which were ever fully developed. Mantria Corp is known as the largest green energy scam the U.S. has ever seen. Many victims lost their entire life savings. Mantria was a Ponzi scheme in which new investor money was used to pay earnings to prior investors, often without any actual product being sold. Mantria's pitch was centered primarily around a venture to produce biochar and a green real estate development in Tennessee. Biochar is a charcoal-like substance made by burning organic material in a process called pyrolysis. Biochar was supposed to take waste like used tires and household garbage and convert it into an energy source and a fertilizer. By spreading this stuff all over your field, it could pull toxins out of the atmosphere. Knorr and Wragg were both honored by former President Bill Clinton, a real pillar of morality himself, during a 2009 ceremony for the Clinton Global Initiative for their plans to develop biochar technology that they said would sequester carbon dioxide and reduce emissions in developing countries. Knorr and Wragg lied to investors, along with Colorado wealth advisor Wade McKelvey. McKelvey ran get-rich-quick seminars to pitch their biochar technology and a carbon-negative housing development in Tennessee. Through his Speed of Wealth seminars, one featuring John Elway, McKelvey overstated claims that Mantria had already made millions of dollars and promised investment returns as high as 484%. McKelvey specifically targeted elderly investors and taught them how to liquidate all their assets, such as mutual funds and 401k plans, then told them to take out as many loans as possible and invest it all in Mantria. Many of them did. However, Mantria's environmental initiatives hadn't been profitable. Biochar is very expensive to produce, and Mantria only had one plant that was just starting out, not the claimed 25. The housing development wasn't anything more than vacant lots resold at a loss, and the early returns paid to investors had been funded almost exclusively from new investments. So where did all these retirees' life savings go? Wragg claims he didn't spend lavishly, despite the influx of millions to their company, merely living in a 1,200 square foot home, and said there was no Lamborghini parked out front. He was, however, driving around in a Mercedes SLK 350 with a Mantria vanity license plate. Granted, it's not an elite luxury vehicle, but it's not a Honda Civic either. Along with funding their lifestyles, there was the creation of Mantria Records, a record label that invested money in a rapper called Ice Block. Mantria Records funded a music video for Ice Block that ridiculously featured Wragg and Knorr. A lawsuit was able to recover about $6 million for victims of the scheme. Another $800,000 was placed in a receivership but has yet to be paid out. Of the $54 million invested in Mantria, $17 million had been paid out to early investors. But when the Securities Exchange Commission shut Mantria down, only $790,000 remained from the other $37 million. Knorr and Wragg both pled guilty after being charged. While out on bail, waiting for his sentence, Wragg hatched another scheme where he solicited an investment in an online video dating service that was about to be purchased by a well-known entrepreneur. Of course, there was no deal, and the victim lost her entire investment. Troy Wragg was deemed a continued threat to the public and received a harsher sentence of 22 years in prison and $54 million restitution. Wade McKelvey was sentenced to 18 years in prison, 5 years of supervised release, in order to pay $37 million restitution. Amanda Knorr was sentenced in Philadelphia federal court to only 30 months in federal prison in order to pay $37 million restitution. Maybe these three should invest in a little morality. Number 2. Give me your tax returns. Tanya M. Fox spent $4 million on a BMW 7 Series, an Infiniti M35, a Chrysler Crossfire, Volkswagen Beetle, and a Maserati, 2 cosmetic surgeries, and she opened a restaurant in Orlando, Florida. But Fox didn't earn her $4 million the old-fashioned way our fathers and grandfathers did, by playing the state lottery. She actually opened bank accounts in the name of fake tax prep businesses to file for fraudulent returns, then used other people to withdraw those returns. Fox filed over 3,590 false tax returns on behalf of 3,023 different victims. Fox used social security numbers, dates of birth, and names of patients, most of whom were teenagers, at the health department to file the returns and obtain nearly $4.1 million. 2 health department employees, Shantarisha Smith and Gerald Williams, and Williams' brother Delray Duncan, were arrested, admitting that they were paid roughly $45,000 to steal patients' information. The investigation started when sheriffs were searching a house and discovered a handwritten list with about 150 names, dates of birth, and social security numbers. During her trial, Fox was deemed the mastermind behind the scheme, given the more severe punishment of 20 years for aggravated identity theft, wire fraud, and conspiracy, as well as theft of government property. While the sentence was viewed by some as harsh, the judge brought up the aggravating factor of bribing 3 members of the health department to get her hands on the identities. Further, the majority of the stolen identities belong to teenagers who will be unaware that their identities had been stolen and the problems that will create until they try to buy a house or a car in the future. All of Fox's assets were seized in order to pay restitution. Her co-conspirator, Gerald Williams, received 4.5 years, Delray Duncan got 3.5, and Shantarika Smith was sentenced to 5 years. Number 1. Queen Tax Fraud. Rashia Wilson was the self-proclaimed queen of IRS tax fraud. Apparently, tax fraud has a monarchy. She posted a message on Facebook in all capital letters for emphasis, claiming that she's a millionaire. For the record, so if we had thought the police indicting her would be easy, it wouldn't be. Honestly, we thought it would have been easy. Wilson promised us that we need more than, quote, black and white to hold her down. That was the message to the rat who went and told on her, although her meaning still seems a bit vague. Wilson's post goes on in disbelief about the police's possible indictment plans, as if the First Lady, so wait, now she's not a queen? Didn't have the Tampa Bay Police Department under her spell. Wait, she's a witch now? Her Majesty reminded us that at the moment she ran Tampa, so she wouldn't have to do any time. But Wilson obviously meant no time other than the 21 years she had gotten for wire fraud, aggravated identity theft, and being a felon, queen, witch, in possession of a firearm. From April 2009 to September 2012, Queen and First Lady Rashia Wilson and her co-conspirator Maurice J. Larry ran a scheme to defraud the Internal Revenue Service by fraudulently obtaining tax refunds. They received U.S. Treasury checks and prepaid debit cards that were loaded with funds derived from filing false income tax returns in other people's names. Wilson and Larry filed these tax returns from various locations, including Wilson's own home and various hotels throughout Tampa. Wilson and Larry then used these refunds to make hundreds of thousands of dollars in retail purchases, to buy money orders, and to withdraw cash. During the unpredicted investigation, agents searched Wilson's house and Larry's storage unit, where they discovered thousands of names and social security numbers. Agents also found high-end accessories, jewelry, and a firearm in Wilson's home. Further, additional reloadable debit cards loaded with fraudulent tax refunds were found in both locations. Wilson, who often referred to herself as the First Lady and Queen of Tax Fraud, title she chose for herself, spent $30,000 on her daughter's first birthday party and had purchased a new Audi for $90,000. The IRS estimated that the actual loss from Wilson and Larry's scheme was $2,240,096.39, though the royal couple's potential theft was in excess of $11 million. At her trial, Wilson's defense brought in a psychologist who explained that she suffers from bipolar disorder that was first diagnosed from a young age, and that the absurd bragging is consistent with her disorder. Wilson had a rough upbringing, struggled in school, and eventually dropped out. However, the judge couldn't ignore the fact that Wilson stole over $3 million from the government. An unfortunate upbringing with a mental disorder didn't give her a pass. The judge sentenced Rashia Wilson to 21 years in federal prison for wire fraud, aggravated identity theft, and being a felon in possession of a firearm, as well as the forfeiture of $2,240,096.39, which constitutes the proceeds traceable to the offense. This was quite an unusually hefty sentence for the amount of money she had stolen. In fact, a petition was set up on change.org calling for a lesser sentence for her. It probably didn't help her case that she chose to scam the government and that she talked trash while doing it. Click to watch one of these next videos. Let us know in the comments section whether or not you think the judge gave Rashia too hefty of a sentence or not.